Hello everyone, welcome to the economics class with me, Virat Chetri, PGT Economics, Kendriya Vidyalaya Badkuhi. And as you all know, we have been discussing about balance of payments, chapter balance of payments, and today we will be continuing with the further discussion of this chapter, and today we are going to discuss about the concept of balance of trade. Before discussing about the concept of balance of trade, let us recall the very last topic which we have been discussing in our previous class. That was, we have finished our last lesson with the topic that there might be a balance of payment equilibrium or there might be a balance of payment disequilibrium. And when will there be balance of payment equilibrium? There will be balance of payment equilibrium when credit side of the balance of payment will be equal to the debit side of the balance of payment. Okay, and there will be balance of payment disequilibrium whenever the credit side is not equal to the debit side. Okay. Now further, today we will discuss about balanced, surplus and deficit balance of payment. What do we mean by balanced balance of payment? By balanced balance of payment, it means similar, it has the same meaning as that of balance of payment equilibrium, so that here the balanced balance of payment will be given by credit side equals to debit side of the balance of payment. Okay, now further, balance of payment disequilibrium can take place in two ways. The first way is that of surplus balance of payment. When will surplus balance of payment occur? Surplus balance of payment will occur whenever credit side of the balance of payment is greater than the debit side of the balance of payment. Since we have discussed that balance of payment disequilibrium occurs whenever credit side is not equal to debit side. Now, credit side and debit side may not be equal in two ways. First way is that credit side may be greater than debit side of the balance of payment, and that whenever this situation occurs, that is credit side is greater than debit side, then we call it surplus balance of payment. In the similar way, there will be deficit balance of payment, and deficit balance of payment takes place whenever the debit side of balance of payment is greater than the credit side of balance of payment. Okay, now we will move on to the topic which we are going to discuss mainly today, that is of balance of trade. But before discussing about the topic of balance of trade, we need to know why there is a need for trade. Okay, whenever we are going to discuss about balance of trade, we should know why there is even a need for trade. Why should a country import products from abroad, or why should a country should export its product abroad? Okay, so we need to understand why the trade occurs. Okay, why does the trade occur? We see that in India, whatever goods we are using, okay, may not be produced entirely in India. For example, we have a huge demand for petroleums, okay, and we have very less petroleum mines in India. Okay, so our petroleum requirements does not get fulfilled by the petroleums being produced within India. So we need to import petroleums from most of the Middle East countries, whether it be Qatar, whether it be UAE, etc. Okay, in the similar way, there are many products which are not produced in India, and we have to purchase those products from abroad. In the similar way, India has a wealth of natural resources like iron ore, coal, etc. And India does export those products to other countries, say Japan. Japan has very less of natural resources, so Japan imports iron ores, etc. from India. In the similar way, India also exports tea, because we see that though the tea is being drunk all over the world, but very few countries in the world do produce tea. So this is how the world economy interacts with each other. This is how one country interacts with other countries. Okay, so this figure will make you clear about how India trades with other countries. India imports crude petroleum, gold, petroleum products. These are the major imports of India. Coal. Now you might see that India is a very high producer of coal, but the coal type of coal found in India is of poor quality coals. As you all know from your class 10's social science that there are categories of coals, and anthracite is considered as the best quality coal, and India has a very few reserves of anthracite coals. It is only available in Jammu and Kashmir. So for that purpose India have to import those anthracites from other countries. Okay, now on the other side, if we see India exports petroleum products. This is refined petroleum products to other countries. Drug and pharmaceuticals, that is medicines. India is one of the largest medicine supplier, medicine exporter in the world. Gold and precious metals in the form of jewelries, iron and steel, etc. Okay, now in order to understand the importance of trade, nowadays we see that not only because of the unavailability of the products, but also because of the lifestyle. Okay, also because of the lifestyle of the human being or the residents in India, we see that the residents in India does prefer to purchase some imported products like cars, okay, like cars, bikes, etc., which they want to purchase from abroad, like Mercedes-Benz is there, Audi is there, okay, Lamborghini is there. There are so many high-profile brands which people in India, whoever is very rich and whoever can afford those products, the affluent section, they prefer the foreign-made products, foreign cars, okay, or foreign clothes brands like Armani, Gucci, etc. So we see that one is because of the unavailability of the resources or unavailability of the product in the country. Another thing is because to maintain the lifestyle, okay, we do purchase the products made in other countries or in foreign countries. So in order to understand about that, let us take an example of few Bollywood songs which we have heard about, okay, which we have heard, and I will be giving you an example of 3 songs. 2 are the latest songs and 1 is a very old song. So before proceeding with it, let us first listen to the songs, watch the video, and then I will relate it with the topic which we are going to deal with today.
मेरा जूता है जापानी, ये पतलून इंग्लिस्तानी, सर पे लाल टोपी रूसी, फिर भी दिल है हिंदुस्तानी। मेरा जूता है जापानी, ये पतलून इंग्लिस्तानी, सर पे लाल टोपी रूसी, फिर भी दिल है हिंदुस्तानी। मेरा जूता है जापानी।
गुची अरमानी पिछे रोलदी जवानी, चेक करदी ब्रांडां वाले टैग नी। आजा दस्सां तैनू सोहणीए नी फैशन की हुंदा तेरे यार दा तां वखरा स्वैग नी। ओ काला कुड़ता पजामा 350 यामा, सरदारी वाला चुक्किया फ्लैग नी। ओ छुट्टी यारां दी ऐ कैम, सारे कड्ड दईए वैम, पंगा लैंदा ना है इंज मैंने जैज नी।
लंबरगिनी चलाई जाने ओ, लंबरगिनी चलाई जाने ओ, सानू भी झूठा दे दो, किथे कल्ले कल्ले जाई जाने ओ, सानू भी झूठा दे दो, किथे कल्ले कल्ले जाई जाने ओ.
So you have seen the three short clippings of the songs. Okay, the first song is very old song, Mera Juta Hai Japani, and then moving on we heard two more clippings which were the songs of recent times, and in all these three songs you may find one common thing, that is in case of Mera Juta Hai Japani, though the brand names are not mentioned, but you can easily find out that the song itself says that the shoes are being imported from Japan. Mera juta hai Japani. Patlung Hindustani means the pant is, Patlung Englishthani means the pant is coming from England. And then there is Sar pe lal topi Rusi means the Russian cap. Okay, here though the brand is not mentioned, but it is clearly mentioned that the products used to come from abroad in that time, also during the time of Raj Kapoor. And now we move on 40 or 50 years and then move on to 2019-18, and we find songs mentioning Lamborghini, where Lamborghini is an Italian car manufacturer. And then you have a song in which it is Yamaha is being mentioned, Armani, Gucci, which are very popular fashion brand of Italy, and Yamaha is a very popular bike producing company of Japan. So we see that in songs also we have products being mentioned. This is how much the trade is affecting our lifestyle and our life. Okay, so we cannot do away with trade easily. We cannot manufacture each and everything which we require in our country itself, because it is neither economical, neither efficient, because we don't find everything in our country. And if we keep on persisting to produce everything in our country, then obviously there may be the cases that though the country might be producing, but we have to pay a very high price for those products. Okay, it is so because of the either because of unavailability of the resources or because of the lifestyle related we have to depend on trade. Okay, similarly, India also exports a lot of things. In the similar way, India imports a lot of things. And the advantage of India and especially China is that of cheap labor. And nowadays we see many companies investing in India, producing in India and China, mainly because to reap the benefit of the cheap labor being provided in India and China. So before thinking any negative about trade, we should know how the countries are related in this highly globalized world, highly interrelated world that we are living. So without trade, it is not possible. Okay. Let us now come to the today's topic, that is balance of trade. So what do we mean by balance of trade? Let us see the definition of balance of trade. Balance of trade refers to difference between the value of or the amounts of exports and the imports of visible items, that is goods or tangible items. Okay, so balance of trade means the difference between the value, that is the monetary value of exports, and the monetary value of imports of only visible items. Visible items means merchandise or the tangible goods that we can purchase, with that we can touch or that we can transfer from one place to another place. Okay, so the formula for balance of trade can be written as exports of goods minus imports of goods and in short we can write it as X minus M, where X denotes exports of goods and M denotes imports of goods. Okay, now here in the similar way as balance of payment, balance of trade may be balanced or surplus or deficit balance of trade. Surplus balance of trade is also known as trade surplus, and deficit balance of trade is also known as trade deficit. Now let's see what do we mean by balanced balance of trade or balanced trade. Here import of goods and export of goods will be equal. Whenever the import of goods is equal to the export of goods, that is its monetary value, the amount of import of goods is equal to the amount of export of goods, we will call it balanced balance of trade, or in short we can call it balanced trade. Okay, now further there can be deficit trade, deficit balance of trade or trade deficit, or surplus balance of trade or trade surplus. So how will it take place? Whenever the value of imports are greater than the value of exports, okay, then it is known as trade deficit. Remember, value of imports of goods are greater than the value of exports of goods. Whatever goods we are exporting, if its value is less than, or the monetary amount which we get after exporting goods is less than the value or the amount of money which we get on imports, then it is known as trade deficit or deficit balance of trade. And the opposite of it will be known as surplus balance of trade or trade surplus. And trade surplus or surplus balance of trade takes place whenever the value of exports or the amount of exports that is taking place, the monetary value of exports of goods will exceed the monetary value of the imports of goods. Okay, based on this we will try solving some of the questions, assessment questions, that is, okay, the first is the value of, in the first two questions I've dealt with one particular type of question, that is you are asked to find balance of trade and the value of exports and imports will be given in the question. Okay, so here we see in this question itself the value of export is 50 crores and import is 185 crores, and we know the formula for calculating balance of trade is exports minus imports. So easily we can find out the value of trade, balance of trade, that is BOT equals to exports minus imports. We get minus 135. So there is, whenever we have this minus sign over here, it means that there is trade deficit. Okay, in the similar way I have taken a second question where the value of exports is given as 150 crores and the value of imports is given as 125 crores, and we are asked to find balance of trade. Now here we know exports is 150 crores, imports is 125 crores. So the formula for balance of trade is exports minus imports. When we deduct 125 imports from export 150, we get 25. So here, since it is a positive value, there is trade surplus, and trade surplus is equivalent to rupees 25 crores. Now we will, in both these cases, in both these questions, we see that the value of imports and exports are given and you are asked to find balance of trade. Now there may be some other type of questions which we will deal with now. Okay, in this question you see that balance of trade shows a surplus of 1200 crores. So here the balance of trade, value of balance of trade is given and the value of imports is given 500 crores, and you are asked to find the value of exports. Here also we will write whatever is given in the question. BOT surplus 1200 crores, imports 500 crores. We know the formula, exports minus imports for balance of trade. And here when we replace the value, okay, when we replace the value of balance of trade, we'll write 1200, and since it is surplus, so we'll write 1200 or plus 1200. Since it is understood that if we don't write the sign, it is plus, so we are not ignoring the plus sign here. 1200 crores equals to exports minus 500, because imports is given as 500 crores. After calculation we get that exports, value of exports is equal to 1700. So our answer is value of export will be rupees 1700 crores. In the similar way we will take another question. Here it was surplus trade, Now we'll take a deficit trade. So balance of trade deficit is 5,000 crores and the value of imports is 9,000 crore given. We are asked to find exports. In both this question, we are asked to find the value of exports. Here also we'll write whatever is given. BOT deficit is 5,000, imports is 9,000 crores. Now balance of trade formula is exports minus imports. Here what we will do is we will write the value of deficit in negative form, negative 5,000. This will make our calculation easy. Otherwise, if we don't write this negative 5,000 here, then we will get the answer, but the answer will not get the sign properly and our answer may be wrong. So whenever we depict it by minus over here, then it will be easy for us to solve the calculation. So deficit means minus, so minus 5,000 equals to exports minus 9,000. After calculating, we get 4,000 as the answer. So the value of exports is rupees 4,000 crores. Here you have to remember one thing: whenever surplus is given, you don't have to mention the sign over here because it is understood that it is plus, and whenever deficit is given, you have to write minus over here so that the calculation becomes easier. Otherwise, what happens is, if you don't write the sign over here, what you would have done is you would have done that minus 9,000 and this plus. So whenever 9,000 goes there, 5,000 minus 9,000, you would have got minus 4,000 as answer. So it would have been a wrong answer. Okay, so always remember, whenever deficit is given, you have to mention minus over here in balance of trade. Now these two questions deals with finding the value of exports given the balance of trade and the imports. Now we will further take two more questions. In this question, you see exports is given, balance of trade is given, and you are asked to find imports, and here it is deficit, so keep that in mind. We write the given things here. Now we write the formula, and then we see that here also, because there is deficit in balance of trade, we are writing it as minus 90. Exports value is given as 63 crores, 63, we have replaced it. Imports we are asked to find. So after solving this, we get that the imports is equal to 90 plus 63, that is 153. So the value of imports is rupees 153 crores. In a similar way, we take the next question here. Instead of deficit, there is surplus 500 crores. The value of exports again is given. We are asked to find imports. Now here also we see that balance of trade surplus is given. We write the given value over here. In the similar fashion, we write the formula, and here we replace balance of trade by 500 because surplus, it is given as surplus, so we don't have to mention minus sign or plus sign over here, because it is understood that whenever we write only the value of the balance of trade, it means that it is in positive terms. So 500 equals to export is given 900, and imports we are asked to find. So here ultimately we find the value of imports as 400. 900 minus 500, that is okay. So the value of imports is rupees 400 crores. In both this question, we see that balance of trade is given and the value of exports is given, and we are asked to find imports. Okay, and we need to keep in mind, whenever the trade deficit is given, you have to replace it with negative sign, and whenever surplus is given, you have to just mention the value. Okay, hope you have understood all these 6 calculations. You just have to remember 2 things. One is, whenever the deficit is given, you have to write negative, and you have to remember the formula. Okay, now we will move on to few of the data related to Indian economy, since we are hearing a lot of news regarding India and China right now, because India and China is having a border standoff right now, and there are people who are asking for us to boycott Chinese products. Now, before understanding that, let us understand how much India is dependent on China, or how much China is dependent on India in terms of trade. So I have come up with a few data over here, statistical data, which in fact is available in the Department of Commerce statistics. Okay, and this is Export Import Data Bank, and here in this particular slide, I'll be discussing about the export country wise, and the figure is given in values in rupees lakhs. So it is here, if you see, it consists of 2018-19 data and 2019-20 sessions data. Here the data is potential data. Here it is not a complete data because the figure data available is from April to February only, and since we know that the financial year comprises of April to March, the last month's, that is March data, is still not available. And because of the pandemic, since everything was locked down, so maybe because of that we are not getting the current figure right now. So it is a probable figure here. Now here, if we see in terms of export, how much does India export to the top 10 countries to which India is exporting here, and we see that China ranks third in case of India. We export almost, in 2018-19 we exported almost 5% of export share of India was to China. Okay, and we exported almost 1.17 lakh crore worth of goods to China. And this year we have already sold, this year means 2019-20 session, we have already sold almost 1.1 lakh crore worth of goods to China. So this year also, if we see, the percentage share exported to China has increased from 5%, 5.0 to 5.3%. Okay, on the other hand, how is India related to China in terms of import? If we see, India imports, the maximum amount of goods imported to India is from China. Okay, and after that comes USA. So China dominates almost 14% of import share of India comes from China, and we almost imported in 2018-19 we almost imported 5 lakh crore worth of products from China. Okay, and in 2019-20 we imported almost 4.4 lakh crores worth of goods from China, and the percentage share increased slightly from 13.6 to 14%. Okay, of our import, total import comes from China. So we are very much dependent on China in terms of import. Okay, on the other hand, in terms of export, India is not that much dependent on China, but China is still is the third largest country to which we are exporting. So this data shows us how India is dependent on China, both in terms of import as well as export. China is also importing our goods, and China is the third largest country which is importing our goods. It is not only one-way trade that is going on. There are two-way trades. Obviously, India is exporting less than whatever it is importing from China. Okay. Now let us compare the two countries, that is China and USA, how India is related to these two countries. In the year 2018-19, India exported almost 1.17 lakh crore worth of goods to China. On the other hand, it imported 4.92 lakh crore worth of goods from China. Okay, and there was, since import value is greater than export value, so there was trade deficit of almost 3.74 lakh crores. Okay, and in the year 2019-20, India exported almost 1.1 lakh crore worth of goods to China and imported 4.4 lakh crore worth of goods from China. So the trade deficit here is 3.3 lakh crore. Okay, as we compare it with previous year 2018-19, then obviously the trade deficit has been reduced, but remember here we are taking only 11 months data, and here it is a complete 12 months data. So here March is missing because the recent data is not available till now. Okay, now if we compare it to USA, then in case of USA we see that we export almost 3.6 lakh crore worth of goods, exported 3.66 lakh crore worth of goods to USA and imported 2.48 lakh crore worth of goods from USA. So here, since export is more than import for India, so as a result, what happened here? We see that the India has trade surplus of 1.17 lakh crore from USA. In 2019-20 also, we exported almost the similar amount of goods. Here, since 1 month is missing, so we can say that almost similar export value, 3.48 lakh crore worth of export was there from India to USA, and 2.36 lakh crore worth of import of goods have been done by India from USA. And when we compare, when we calculate, balance of trade, then we see that there is trade surplus because export from India is more to USA than whatever India is importing from USA. So there is a trade surplus of 1.11 lakh crore. Okay, we see that here you see a very huge number. These numbers are in terms of lakh rupees, so when it is being converted, then we can write it as 1.1 lakh crore worth of trade surplus is there for India from USA. Okay, now these are in values in rupees lakhs. Okay, as we have seen in previous two slides also. Now if we compare India's scenario with that of China's trade statistics, okay, then we see whatever call that we are hearing right now in news channels, in televisions, in radios, in newspaper, etc., we are being asked to boycott the Chinese product. Okay, it has some political implications, obviously, because of the border issues and all, but we need to understand it from the economics background, as we all are students of economics. Even though I am teaching economics in class 12 level, but we too are a student of economics, and we have to understand it from economics perspective, not from a very much of a political perspective. Okay, now let us see how much impact does India have if India boycotts everything that is being produced in China. If India boycotts everything, every products whatever is coming from China, if we are able to boycott it, then what percentage share of export are we going to affect for China? Only 3%. Okay, export partner share. Okay, it means that out of the total export that China is making to the world, okay, only 3% of that export comes to India. On the other hand, India exports, that is China imports almost 0.88% of goods. Whatever goods they import from other countries, if all countries combined together is 100%, then the goods imported from India is 0.88. Obviously, we see that there is a huge trade balance, that is trade surplus for China coming out of India. This all data is of 2018. Only 2018's data, latest data is not available. The latest that is available is of 2018 in World Bank site, that is wits.worldbank.org, and we see here that 58.03 billion US dollar worth of trade surplus is there to China from India. Okay, so obviously this is one thing. So the suggestion is that instead of boycotting the imports, if we can raise our export to China, then we may be in a better position than right now. China may be much more dependent on us, and we too may be dependent on China, and both the way we can affect each other's economy. Here we see that we often see that China has a border dispute with many countries, including Hong Kong. Okay, it tries to control the political scenario of Hong Kong, and we see that Hong Kong is one of the major importers of goods from China. Almost 12% of China's export goes to Hong Kong. United States, the highest importer of Chinese products. See here. Okay, almost 19% of goods being exported from China is to USA. Okay, isn't this an interesting figure? If you see Vietnam, China has a border dispute with Vietnam also, and we see that China exports more percentage of goods to Vietnam than India. Okay, so we see here that instead of boycotting, or instead of completely not importing any goods from China, what we can effectively do is raise our exports to China. And when we can do that, then this trade deficit which India has, or the trade surplus which China has from India, can be reduced. Okay, so this way we can make more impact to China than simply boycotting it, because we will be boycotting only 3% of its exports here if we see it. Okay, now further moving on to the topic that we have been discussing in our chapter. Okay, this is a very important topic for you all, for the boards, that is difference between balance of trade and balance of payments. Here also you will find that this question will come of 3 or 4 marks in your board questions. If it comes for 4 marks, you have to write 4 differences, and if it comes for 3 marks, you have to write 3 differences each. So let us see the differences. The first difference is that balance of trade, as we have been discussing, only deals with the value difference between the value of imports of goods and export of goods, visible trades only, visible items only. On the other hand, balance of payments, if we see the case of balance of payments, in case of balance of payments, as we have discussed in our very first class related to balance of payments, we see that it records everything, all the transactions, not only the visible items, but it also includes invisible items, capital transfers, income transfers, unilateral transfers, etc., between the residents of a country and the rest of the world during a given period of time. Okay, now as we all know, balance of trade only includes visible items. Balance of payments, on the other hand, includes not only visible items, but it includes invisible items, that is services, unilateral transfers, capital transfers, income transfers, etc. Okay, here it does not record any transactions of capital nature. Now let us recall whatever we have learned in our last class. In last class we learned that there are 4 components of current account, and one of that components is visible items. Okay, and since balance of trade deals with only visible items, obviously it is not going to affect capital account portion of the balance of payment. It is what is written over here. It does not record any transactions of capital nature. Okay, and balance of payment records all transactions of capital nature. It not only includes the transactions of current nature, but it will also include the transactions of capital nature. So balance of trade obviously is just a part of balance of payments. So balance of trade is a narrower concept and balance of payment is a wider concept, and whenever there is trade deficit or surplus, it can be covered by other components of the balance of payment. Okay, on the other hand, if there is some sort of disequilibrium in balance of payment, then it cannot be covered by changing the balance of trade. Okay, however, the balance of trade disequilibrium can be made out by balance of payment, but in case of unfavorable balance of payment, that is in case of balance of payment disequilibrium, it cannot be covered by the changes in balance of trade. Hope you have understood whatever we have discussed today. Okay, so we have come to an end for today's lesson, and hope you have understood everything. You all are studying very well back at home. Stay safe, stay home, and keep studying. Thank you very much.